There was a big school marm right where we stopped.
A big what?
School marm. Forked tree with a big butt.
School marm. I was like a school marm.
That's a good name for that.
It's a completely inappropriate name.
I didn't know until this year that you can totally ski Gunsight Ridge. I've ridden my bike on it, and I even reviewed that ride, but the idea of skiing it had never occurred to me. This review is really going to be more of a story because a turn-by-turn guide will be of no use in this area. This is a zone where the best approach is to either poke around or hire a guide, or hire a guide and poke around. First, start at Pocket Creek Snow Park and try not to get mowed down by passing traffic on Highway 35. I lost the first couple of turns because my GoPro was misbehaving, but we just skied down the road until we crossed a pretty obvious bridge. The first right turn leads to boring cross-country ski trails, so we avoided that and stayed on Forest Service Road 3540, which I'm sure has some wintry, goofy ski trail name, but I don't care. I've ridden my bike up it. It's a paved Forest Service road with snow on it. Just call it the 3540. Members of our group had red intelligence indicating that the best way to climb to the top of Gunsight Butte is to follow a skin track to the left about a mile up the 3540. Sure enough, here was the skin track, but it looked awfully steep, and it was hard for us to believe that this was the way people were climbing up the butte. So we kept climbing up the road instead for another half mile. Now, a few hundred feet past where that skin track climbs the hill, there is this logging spur that peels off to the left. It goes to a dead end less than halfway up the ridge, but it would have worked to get us at least part of the way up to the top if we'd wanted to use it. But instead of using that spur, after we had gone about a half a mile up the road and decided to turn around and come back, we came back to where we saw the skin track. For future reference, this first zigzagging track can be avoided, if desired, by using that spur road to get up to where this skin track eventually does intersect it. But I liked this climb up through the forest, and as far as I could tell, so did everyone else. It's just a really pretty forest, and it's kind of this type of forest skiing I've never gotten to experience on cross-country skis for sure. It's rare to experience forest like this, as there's no way we would have willingly bushwhacked our way through this during the summer, but during the winter it just becomes a little playground. All we needed to do was find and or make our own path. We really didn't know where we were going other than up the hill, and we kind of knew we wanted to stay more to the north. So in the interest of adventure, we proceeded up the road for a distance. We were just poking around and exploring, seeing if there were any grades or contours that we could follow to the top. Like on any worthy expedition, there were false starts. That's just part of the game, but I don't commit to fool's errands if I can avoid it, and thankfully I had the presence of mind to turn around and find a better route when it made sense to do so. We finally opted to just cut our own track up through the trees until we found someone else's. One thing that we learned about this area is that it is crisscrossed with tracks from other groups of people doing exactly what we were doing during the winter, just kind of finding a way to the top of the ridge. It's sort of fun to think about how many goofy weirdos just like us are scurrying around these woods all winter. I don't think we could have asked for better weather for this trip. It was clear after about 3 weeks of heavy snowfall, and most of the snowpack we were skiing on was shaded and cold. It was pillowy under the trees, and the sun cast hard shadows on an icy winter scene, the type we don't usually get in the Oregon Cascades until the middle of February, weather patterns being what they are around here. It's best not to get discouraged by the satellite imagery around here because while it may look like nothing but dense forest on Google Earth, there are some really nice clearings caused by scree fields that we broke out onto. It almost felt like we were in a ski resort without all the people and with a lot more work required on our part. So we zigzagged our way up the clearing, as one does. A lot of views opened up as we gained elevation in these open areas, especially of the mountain directly to our west, but I'll talk more about that later. I can't think of another sport where I've experienced scenery quite like this. Cross-country skis can't access this terrain. It would be a nightmare on snowshoes with all the traversing, and a snowmobile could never fit through these woods. This might very well be the best mode of travel to get around the steep backcountry in the winter. Seriously, there are no established trails where we were skiing around. This is all exploration. Forests that otherwise I'd never see unless I were logging it with a chainsaw. Route finding can be difficult through the woods, and it's a fortunate thing that Gunsight Ridge has a few scree fields that form nice long glades during the winter, which provide a good route to the top. They can be a bit of a grunt, but they also provide an opportunity to practice kick turns. The next time I ski this, I'm bringing my crampons because with the typical melt-freeze cycles and wind that pulls the snow off these slopes and deposit it over the Jean Lake side of the ridge, it can be difficult to find traction in places. Especially in my case, since I was foolish enough and I purchased frame bindings when I got don't get frame bindings. No one should purchase frame bindings if given a better option. The cool part about just climbing straight up the face through snow that I didn't really anticipate was that we ended up at the top a lot sooner than I expected. The thing to keep in mind about Alpine Touring is that while the skin tracks might be very steep, there are much fewer obstacles than there would be if one were to attempt to climb up the same route in the summer. So the overall approach to the summit seems, at least felt, like it was a lot faster than following a summer hiking trail. And upon arriving at the summit, there was a view, there was quite a view to behold. We totally lucked out, arriving here on a clear bluebird day like this. There are a lot of Instagrammable views up here along this butte, but anyone who's lived in the Pacific Northwest long enough has already been inundated with all these views in their Instagram feed. Gunsight is cool because it affords the obvious view of the east side of Mount Hood, but also of Eastern Oregon and parts of the gorge, plus Mount Jefferson and Mount Adams through select gaps in the trees. This is a great time to listen to summit music while I swing the camera around this panorama. Snow conditions are variable, so unlike my biking reviews, I can't really give durable information about what the surface is like or what the descent is going to be like. It really does depend on the day and which route. The most attractive feature in this zone, though, its killer app, so to speak, is tree skiing. And as it happened, we found the pillowiest, fluffiest snow under the trees where it hadn't yet gotten hit by the sun or gone through a melt cycle since the last snowstorm. It was magical. It was bliss. The trickiest part of this descent was really just staying together as a group. Nothing is worse than trying to locate a lost member of the group, and we had to be extra attentive to accomplish that. This is not a good zone for beginners or people with poor situational awareness. Group decision-making was key to enjoying this descent. One of the other behaviors that really made this go smoothly was that once a group decision was made, everyone followed along. No deviations from the plan means that no one gets lost. The forest closer to the summit is a lot more open than the forest down here near the bottom, both because it has never been clear-cut, so the trees are more mature, and because it's higher elevation, so naturally more sparse. The upshot of this is that it took us a lot longer to pick our way down the lower half of the ridge, or it felt like it took longer. It was definitely trickier. It wasn't any less fun, it just took more coordination. Eventually, we found our way back to the spur road. From here, there is the option to coast down the grade out to the 3540, or to just drop through this last patch of woods, the ones we skinned up on our way in. We chose the woods, of course, and in the 3 hours that had elapsed since we'd come up this way, the snow had warmed up significantly, meaning it was a lot heavier and not nearly as fun to shred through as the unusually nice powder near the summit. It was still fun, though. Once back out on the 3540, it's about a half mile of coasting to the bridge, and then it's another half mile of skinning back up the road to the cars. This is the Pocket Creek Snowpark area, so there are a lot more people here than up in the woods where we just were. A little note about the parking area at Pocket Creek is that it's horrible. Our cars were like 3 feet from traffic barreling down Highway 35, and we were getting hit by spray, and it was loud. Also, there's quite a significant snow berm that we were parked up against. This is all just good to keep in mind, but overall, I'd recommend this area for folks who like a little bit of an offbeat alternative adventure. Thank you to all of my subscribers. and Patreon supporters, especially Damon Corey, my Loamy Goodness level sponsor, as well as my Hero Dirt level sponsors, Heather Van Valkenburg, Jason Moore, Ty Morgan Marbett, and Todd McCarthy. I promise more mountain bike trail reviews are coming in the near future. I have not changed the channel format. I've just added to it. But, it is still winter, so sit tight. Now, until the snow melts, get out there and go shred some pow.